Good. Go ahead. Hello, everybody there in Facebook land, and welcome to you guys who are here tonight. I'm so glad to have you here. Could we make sure that everybody actually gets a piece of paper to write on with a pen and clipboard? That's good. This is a pretty simple talk, guys. If you know anything about nutrition, do you seem to hear lots of stuff in the news about nutrition? Yes, and you hear lots sometimes contradictory stuff. Yeah, have coffee, don't have coffee. Coffee's full of antioxidants. Coffee makes you sick. Coffee does right, all that sort of stuff. I like nutrition from this perspective of what does a person need to do to eat on this end and consume to get this effect in the body. All the stuff that happens in between, as far as the chemistry goes, is really not that something I find all that interesting. I didn't find chemistry interesting in school, but what I'm going to tell you is the things you're going to learn here tonight will be stuff you can use immediately. Hey, welcome. Good, come on in. Um, you'll be able to use it and apply it right away because this test, where you're going to actually learn how to analyze a food before you consume it, will make it so easy that you would actually be only probably make a mistake maybe 0.5% of the time on the food choice because it's not going to make you through this filter very, very easily. And honestly, guys, if you plan to have some vacation meals, that's totally fine too. I think the guy who put it best was Bill Phillips, who wrote the book Body by God, or excuse me, Body for Life, and he said that um, half of getting what you want out of life is actually know what you have to say no to get there, which sometimes involves saying no to certain foods. But if you read his book about how he did nutrition, he said you also get in his plan 3 vacation meals per week. And he actually said he planned to have his all in one day, which was usually a weekend day, because by the time he was done eating all the stuff he normally didn't eat, he said he felt so bad. He's like, I know why I'm actually eating the way I do the other 6 days of the week kind of thing. And you can spread them out as you want to. But honestly, guys, this little rubric we're going to give you here, I really feel like it's going to cover all the slam bang, whiz, new things you hear in the news about some new fad in nutrition, because you want to take it through this rubric. And these things have been proven to be time and time again to be the right answer. Also, I want to tell you guys that we are living in an epidemic right now of nutritionally related illnesses. We're going to talk about how bad it is, how many Americans are suffering from certain things, and they're going to tell you that we, in many cases, are killing ourselves with our fork and our spoon. Right? We actually, some people in this room have changed things radically, and we've seen some really cool things happen with our health. And so, if you want to share your story at the end, it'd be fantastic to do that. But anyway, this is actually taken from a lecture that was given by Susan Silverstein, which is a person I was introduced because of Lynn, who's here tonight. I actually heard her speak approximately 10 years ago, and then got her material, and she actually lost a spouse due to cancer, and she said, you know what, it seems like he should not have gotten that, and I want to do everything I can to help people not have to go through the grief I went through that. And she's actually established a foundation called the Center for Advancement in Cancer Education, part of which is what she does in the public for lay people, and then things that she also does for professionals like myself and people who are really into nutrition. So whole food nutrition, 4 rules for life and health. And I think when you come away from this class, you'll be able to remember these. So if you just want to put numbers 1 through 4 in your paper and leave a little space in between, we're going to cover some stuff that will be very helpful, very usable starting tonight before you go to bed if you're going to have a snack, or tomorrow morning when you get up and have breakfast. You can use it right away, okay? So here's the things that the current dilemma is that people are not generally confused that diet plays a role in your health. If I said right now, diet literally cannot influence your health at all, would you believe me? Right? Not a person here would say that's the case. You know that we've heard enough studies now of what things that we should eat or things that are related to increasing illness and so forth. But people are confused about how to eat. And for example, they talk about these things that you'll see countries where when they change their diets and start to incorporate more of the Western model versus the things they grew up indigenously in their part of the world, that they actually see that they get these illnesses within 2 generations where they're exactly the same as the United States. Like literally in 2 generations, they get more heart disease, more cancer, more Alzheimer's, more whatever. And it seems to be largely driven by these dietary changes they make. And the thing is, if you go to the allopathic side of healthcare, guys, and I actually have known several people, they've actually been employees of our office who've gone to get their medical degree, or I've known people actually who have had relatives like cousins and nephews and so forth. They will tell you that still in medical school this day, it's so dominated by big pharma that when it comes to coaching people in lifestyle and so forth, the average medical student will get 30 to 90 minutes of nutrition education as an elective in their entire education of 4 years. That's an hour and a half of nutrition education in 4 years. Now, in chiropractic college, the ratio is much higher because we are focused on helping you what? Restore health naturally, which a big part of is actually getting the right building blocks and fueling your body once we've cared for your nervous system. But you can imagine that. And so they come out of school being very smart at surgery and prescribing drugs. When it comes to these things like this, it's really sad. And one of our people who actually worked in our office, actually is a chiropractor and now is practicing in Western Nebraska, when he came to us initially, he was actually considering what he wanted to do for a career. And so he was following different occupations in health around, and he was actually following a family physician. And right outside the room, he pulls this patient's chart and he said this. He goes, I'm going to go in this room. This guy you see right here, he actually has high cholesterol. He has high blood pressure. He has high triglycerides. And his blood sugars aren't doing so well either. That's actually called Syndrome X. That covers all those things. They're metabolic diseases. And he said, this person, I could actually get this person off of all of these drugs. But the reality is it would actually involve coaching in some lifestyle. And I don't have the time, and he doesn't have the interest. I can guarantee this. If I taught, it would be wasted time. So I was going to go and renew his prescriptions for those 6 months. My friend was like, I can't believe it's that negative on this thing. Like, he just literally believes this guy cannot change. Now, I did hear a quote this week that I thought was pretty amazing. And this guy was actually asked, he works in helping people in family therapy. He was asked by a person, he says, what is the most interesting thing that you've learned about people in all your time you've worked in counseling and stuff? He says, it is either the inability or the unwillingness of people to change in light of new information. Now, that's a sad reality, isn't it? We kind of get in our frameworks and we say, well, I've heard that stuff, I don't know, or we're creatures of habit. We just have eaten all the way that our parents taught us how to by habit, and so by default, that's what we do. Tonight, I'm going to maybe do one of two things. I will give you information that will make you uncomfortable, and sometimes they say that, when you get to the point of where the pain of making a change is less painful than the pain of the way you've been living, then you'll actually make a change there too. So whatever you take from weight tonight, I don't want to change it all, or I want to change a lot of stuff, we're going to make it so simple that you can actually do it if you want to. Now, here's the current health statistics. 23 million Americans have cancer, 41 million have heart disease, 50 million actually have high blood pressure, 40 million have high cholesterol, 18 million have diabetes. That's growing rapidly. Over half of us are overweight, and 75% of U.S. are in some relate either primarily or secondarily diet related. That's pretty sobering. So if you choose to take what we teach you tonight and change some things, you're making some great gains at improving our national health statistics, and most importantly, guys, your quality of life. It's one thing to be part of a group of people, and I guarantee you, if each one of you wrote down all the people that you influenced, the person that you're married to, your kids, your parents, your grandkids, your nieces, nephews, your absence in their life would be sorely felt. Like, it would leave a major vacuum. Well, living well and living in a good way would actually keep you around. If you can avoid those illnesses, which are largely driven by lifestyle, you make a lot of other people happy besides yourself too. So I want you to keep that in mind. This is a humanitarian thing to do as well too. What about our children? 1 in 2 will develop heart disease. 1 in 3 will develop cancer. 20 million kids are obese, and by age 3, we're already seeing when kids actually die, and they do autopsies of these people are like young people, like soldiers in their 18s and 20s. They're seeing atherosclerosis in their arteries already. That should not be present at all at those ages. And so sadly, it's because of, again, how they've been taught to and eating. By age 30, if current trends continue, I think they said by the year 2030, which isn't that far away, 2050, excuse me, that over half of us will actually have type 2 diabetes. And so this will be the first generation of kids that are being born now that they anticipate will actually live less long than their parents did. Isn't that sad? All this time we've seen life expectancy keep growing and growing and growing, and that's going to start to be curtailed. They said that's on the average, and the majority of people who actually live the way the average American does and eats the standard American diet, which is the abbreviation for that is SAD, standard American diet, okay, then that's going to be the reality. But they said there's also going to be more and more centenarians than ever before, meaning those people live to be 100 years plus, but they're doing something radically different than the average American's doing, okay? So that's how that goes. Now, who's going to reverse this trend? Well, guys, I'm going to ask this question, and I think I know the answer that you tell me. Do you think the government is going to successfully help us change our diets?
They can't do anything.
They can fight a few wars and put some roads down. I would agree, Mike. They can't do a whole lot of things very well. They've tried these various things that were actually in many cases purchased for and paid for by the different industries. But they tried the 4 food groups, they tried the pyramid, all these different things, and they have been very mild in their effect in terms of helping people actually change things. And of course, food corporations, do they have a high interest in actually helping you eat better? No, whatever makes a buck typically, right? So they talk about these sponsorships will actually have professional basketball players, endorsing fast food and so forth. And if you actually ask them, do you eat that stuff? Well, of course not. That stuff kills you. I couldn't play basketball eating that stuff, but they get paid a lot of money for it, right? So the question, guys, is really comes down to, can you do it for yourself and your family and your community? I think it's one of those things that you're going to have to empower yourself. I'm glad you're here tonight because that's what you're doing, is you're giving yourself some great information, hopefully the inspiration to take what I teach you and do it day after day, even when things can be hard, okay? So rule number 1 is going to be this: eat primitive. Write this one down. What this basically means is you're going to try to eat like a hunter-gatherer, which we did for thousands of years. And when you think about that, if you were actually a hunter-gatherer, what did you eat? In fact, Ryan could probably teach us, if the zombie apocalypse happens, Ryan's going to feed us all because he knows how to do this sort of thing. Okay? So Ryan, what do hunter-gatherers eat?
Fruits, berries.
You bet.
Fish.
There you go.
Meat and berries.
You better believe it. Did a hunter-gatherer have a factory they could go to and just wait at the end for something to come out in a package?
No.
Not really, right? So whatever was available here, digging it out, whatever was here in a bush and I could pick it off, or whatever was here in a tree I could climb and get whatever. And then sometimes the things that actually ate those things as well too, right? So those things are what God put on this earth for us to actually supply our blueprint, our DNA, and our genes with what they need to be healthy. And so it's really how we ate, and it's really amazing. And here's this kind of funny thing of a hunter-gatherer. Here's the caveman with his wife. He says, "Hey, I'm the hunter. You're supposed to be the gatherer." And she's killed this woolly mammoth. She says, "Well, he was standing on the stuff I was wanting to gather. That's why she killed it." Isn't that funny? Makes me laugh. But there it is. And so the thing is, guys, that actually in the last couple centuries, food has become very industrialized. We actually have now fewer and fewer people are involved in agronomy and agriculture, and it goes to a factory where it's actually denuded of most of the things that make it good, and some things are added in that make it less healthy. And so it's been commercially raised, processed, stripped, and boxed and canned. And this food, our body does not actually handle very well, especially at the genetic level. It's not to give you, it's trying to make things like think of your genes as like a blueprint to make more cells and stuff from. It's going to do the best it can with what you give it. But if you give, like Mike, you worked in construction for several years. If you were given inferior quality blocks, what would you know about the building? Is it going to magically just be the Taj Mahal? No, it's going to be some pretty questionable stuff to actually live in and work in and so forth. So they contrast the diets. They say the ancient diet was composed mostly of roots and fruits. These are nice little rhymes, right? Greens and beans, seeds and weeds, and animals who ate those things as well too. So if you couldn't get your omega-3s from fish and so forth, or animals, they actually, if you could, those things actually had eaten those things as well too. So bison or free-range things, anything like that, has eaten grass like venison. We're going to show you a picture of venison, what it looks like compared to commercial raised things. It's like a totally different beast or a totally different animal. Literally, it's a totally different animal. Okay. Modern foods have meats and sweets, cakes and shakes, chips and dips, and fries and pies. Right. So put a caveman on this diet, right? I hate to say caveman, but our early ancestors, and they would start to look and have the same health experience that most Americans are having now. It's really sad. So as cultures adopt our diet, they get sicker as well. Does that surprise you? It does not surprise me at all. Contrast those things right there, okay? So here's an example of how fat content has changed. In the great debate over fatty acids, omega-3s that you eat, who's heard of omega-3s before, right? You hear of cold water fish having them, they do, yes, but also so does venison, so does free-range cattle, so do things, anything that's eating grass or green things, it's in their bodies as well too. You can actually find them in those plants as well. Those things actually have a positive effect on our immune function. They actually help boost it, and they actually are anti-inflammatory, which means your average biochemical processes in your body are not promoting inflammation. And you think of inflammation, think of like a sunburn, or like what you feel if you get like a rug rash. If you fall on the floor, there's a healing process that gets inflamed. It's an important process, but it needs to be attenuated. And eating omega-3s in your diet, at least having half of the fats there are that way. Omega-6s, which are actually the other ones, and this is just based on their chemical composition, these are found more in like seed oils, so like corn, safflower, sunflower, things like that. You can eat those things in greens, but the average American diet is so much more full of those now than our ancestors had. Those things are actually, they tend to suppress our immune system and actually cause more inflammation. So ancient meats like venison, if you were pretty good with a spear or pretty good with a bow or whatever like this, then you're able to get something like that. The fat in those things was about 4%, and actually it was primarily unsaturated fat like omega-3s. And the ratio of those two things was approximately 1-to-1. So look how nice and lean that is. In fact, who's ever had venison by itself? It's pretty tough, isn't it, right? Like you actually almost have to add, people often add pork to it to make it a little bit more fatty, to make it go down more easy. Modern meats, this is actually a commercially raised T-bone steak from a cow that was actually probably raised on a feedlot, fattened up with corn right before it went to market. Look at the fat content difference. Can you see it at a macro level? You see those marbling things, the stuff you would trim off before you ate it, for sure, right? Unless you're really hardcore, like that sort of thing. Well, the fat content's about 40%. It's about 99% saturated, 1% unsaturated. And the ratio of anti-inflammatory to pro-inflammatory is more like 1-to-25. That means you eat that thing and you're already turning up the temperature in your body. You're getting ready to have sore joints, eczema, asthma, allergies, anything you suffer with that tends to be inflammatory. In fact, almost every disease process has an inflammatory component, such as Alzheimer's, heart disease, cancer, the biggest killers in our country. Those things are way more likely to happen on a steady diet of this than that. I'm not saying you can't have this every once in a while, but boy, as a steady diet of that, you're actually setting yourself up for it. And, I may have you share, Mike, about what it's been like for you to change some of those things, which has been absolutely amazing, right? So we're eating more of the wrong kinds of fats than ever before. And you can see it at a macro level, and you certainly experience that as well, too, when you eat it, too. So Where would you find omega-3s? Well, there's wild caught fish. So the few oceans that we have that are still pretty pristine, great places like in the Nordic areas or some parts of the Pacific. Sea vegetables, flaxseed actually contains it. So if you're actually a person who's actually vegetarian or vegan, um, free-range chickens that have been able to eat bugs or seeds and things like that, and the eggs that they produce. Who's ever actually had omega eggs before? Would actually feed the chickens flax and stuff like that. That's a great way to get it too. Walnuts contain them, pumpkin seeds. Omega-6s, on the other hand, you can find in almost everything. In fact, if you look at most processed foods, you'll see somewhere on that package that they have actually put in there either sunflower, safflower, soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, cottonseed, sesame oil, and peanut oil. One of the biggest concerns, guys, on this list is actually cottonseed oil. Cottonseed, is cotton actually, is that a food?
No.
It's not. You don't normally eat your t-shirt, do you, Ryan? Unless you're really desperate. Yeah? Okay.
No,
So,
I've been cooking a long time.
that's right. How do you like yours, Mike? Fried or filleted? Yeah. There is. But they said that cottonseed, what said about that especially is because it's not a food, there's less regulations on it. And so the spring that they would put on a cotton field is way more toxic than you would actually ever be allowed to put on actual food intended for humans. So if you see cottonseed oil in this one thing, one of my friends says, you put that thing down because it's going to contain way more like just any of the sprays that we put on there kind of stuff, the things that are toxic to weeds and also to humans as well too. The ancient diet was loaded with lots of good things and none of the bad. So these phytonutrients, things that make things very colorful, they're full of antioxidants, things that actually help you from having cells become essentially rusted out. Bioflavonoids, isoflavones, indoles, carotenoids, enzymes, and chlorophyll. They estimate that, as far as they can tell, there's at least 30,000 of these things. They've only discovered about one half of them are. There's over 12,000 of those in one tomato. Can you imagine that? These things that God just put on the planet that our cells need to thrive and survive better. Okay. On the other hand, the ancient diet did not have any genetically modified things. What's the disadvantage, guys, of eating a plant that's been genetically modified? Do you know? What's the biggest disadvantage of it? Is it the plant itself? No. The biggest problem is, guys, they've made it so those plants can resist Roundup and so forth. So they come over these fields and they'll do a complete overspraying, and what it kills is it kills the weeds that aren't genetically modified, but these plants survive. Well, guess what? That's the thing that becomes what you eat, right? The corn, the beans, and so forth. So in low concentrations, those things are always getting put into our systems. And if you've read anything about the lawsuits that have happened, it's not a pretty scene. Pesticides, herbicides, foreign chemicals, hormones added to cattle and so forth. I don't have a problem with animals giving antibiotics if it's sick, guys. That's not a problem. The problem is when you give animals prophylactically antibiotic after antibiotic to keep them from getting sick, it changes their whole gut flora and so forth. That actually becomes part of their meat. And of course, microwaving too. All those things actually tend to create toxicities of things that you do not need or deficiencies of things that you do need. And that's why we want to avoid those things. So rule number 2 is eat colorful, okay? Things that contain lots of color. We mentioned that last thing, that scientific stuff about all those different chemicals. Colorful things contain things that we need. The typical modern diet is very devoid of color. It contains white things such as white bread, white pasta, white potatoes, white rice, sugar, milk, and cheese. And so forth. There's one guy, I can't remember if it was Jack LaLanne or somebody, but one of their big phrases was, the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. They've just taken out all the good stuff. There's nothing left in there except just calories and stuff. It's actually what makes paper mache from that becomes in your gut. Now, when we say eat colorful, we're not talking about eating Skittles. Skittles are colorful, but they do not contain those things we were talking about, okay? And cow's milk, just as an idea, guys, cow's milk was really intended for a calf to go from roughly 100 pounds when they're born to 1,200 pounds within 1 year, and then they're weaned. It's really not designed the best for human beings. Now, some cultures have actually adapted to it fairly well. I'm of Nordic descent. I actually have Swedish heritage. I can still eat dairy today with no responses to the lactose or the caseins. However, I know that also is stuff that I don't necessarily need to have. I can get it through other sources. Sometimes people say, what about the dairy? The dairy that's found in milk is actually rather hard for your body to access because you're not a calf. So I'm not saying I'm not a super hardcore guy, but I think you can do better with less of it. But then where do we get color from? Okay, lots of those vegetables I showed you before and fruits as well. So what these foods contain are these things that are called carotenoids that make things very colorful. And what's really nice about them is they have 2 major effects. One of them is to support your immune system. So we have these things called T killer cells. That's one actually acting on a tumor right there, a natural killer cells. When you have a diet high in those things, they can be more potent at actually catching cells that go awry. Basically, the current research says that every one of us creates approximately 5,000 to 10,000 cancer cells per day in our bodies through the normal process of living. They become kind of semi-functional cells. They're sort of they're kind of hanging on. They're not very healthy, but they can go awry very quickly. One way you can kill them and get rid of them is actually by having these things go in there and actually do their business and actually take them out. Another one is actually through occasionally intermittent fasting. They say that actually it's a great way to kill these. It calls apoptosis is the term to kill these cells. Another thing they do, these colorful foods, they provide antioxidants. You've heard antioxidants. You've heard that term before? Okay. What they do is they actually help neutralize free radicals. And when we say free radicals, we don't mean the people in the 60s with flour in their hair and all that stuff. It's just, right? What these things do is they come in where cells are actually having electrons stolen from them. They donate their electrons to make these things stay complete. Okay? So the normal oxidation process is you take a bite of an apple, you leave it on the counter, come back to it an hour later when it's turning brown, right? That's the process of oxidation. That's also rust on your car. This actually can happen at a cellular and organic level if you don't have enough antioxidants. What's nice is these foods provide those things. You want to neutralize those compounds because if these don't get their electron that they want, they bounce around and steal them from other ones, and they just keep wreaking havoc. It's like a perpetual motion machine to destroy stuff, and that it actually causes DNA damage. What's nice is this protects your cell's DNA. You can literally see a person who is eating a very devoid diet of these things because you will see the signs of aging coming on very fast. Okay, this is actually what happens. Okay. So eating colorful provides fiber as well too. What's great about fiber is that it keeps us regular for sure. This actually has a way of neutralizing constipation, diverticulitis, polyps, and irritable bowel syndrome. They say a good rule of thumb is you should be able to eat something and within a short while actually have bowel movement, 3 times a day minimum. It actually binds hormones and chemicals in your system that should not be there, and this sorts them out. Fiber has a binding effect, which produces less cancer of the breast, prostate, lymph system, and also the colon as well. The best sources of fiber are going to be found in whole grains, fresh fruits, seeds and nuts, fresh vegetables, beans and legumes, sea vegetables, and then there's something called psyllium husk, which actually is a non-water soluble fiber. But you can take a teaspoon of that stuff and shake it up in a juice, and man, I tell you what, we have one that we don't carry right now, but it's actually called Be Sure. And I actually have said that combination, that thing should be called Get Up and Go, because if you take that at night, in the morning you will. You get up and go. It's truly amazing. So, and the thing is about if you're going to eat foods that actually contain fiber, do not forget to have the ones that you typically turned your nose up as a kid. Remember when Mom brought you Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli? Most kids are like, oh, it tastes bitter and strong. What's nice is those things contain sulfur and something called indole that actually help you detox your liver. And these are the highest concentrations are found in cabbage, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, and collard greens. What I've learned, guys, is actually almost anything that you currently find like gross as far as foods go, if your why is big enough and you actually find ways of preparing it, you can make it tolerable. I have a fantastic recipe somewhere for Kung Pao Brussels sprouts. It's truly amazing, and I would recommend it. So my son and I, that's when we really started actually eating lots of Brussels sprouts, is eating it that way. Okay, we need to step it up because, excuse me, in terms of fiber, we really need to have about 30 to 50 grams of fiber per day. If you're eating 9 to 13 fruits and vegetables per day, you would actually meet that right away. Like an apple, I think contains like 5 or 7 grams right away, but most of us do not get that. We were very fortunate to see Americans even get, very few. They estimate that if you were eating that much fiber, it would reduce 3 million deaths a year that are happening from things there. What we actually get is between 3 to 5 grams of fiber, which is 90% less than the recommended amount. And that part of it, the reason is because here's our top 3 vegetables that we eat as in the country. Number 3 is ketchup. 2 is iceberg lettuce. Number 1 is French fries. Do those sound like high quality vegetables to you? Most people are like, no way, right? And you can find all those in a fast food meal if you want them, right? But there it is. So that's why we want to make sure you get more fiber, and just eating more fruits and vegetables will get you there. Okay? Number 3, the rule is you want to eat alkaline. Now, does anybody here remember anything from high school chemistry? Do you remember your teacher's name even? Yeah, you do, right? That's great. That's good. I remember a few things too. Yeah, good. And college chemistry too. Okay? Do you remember the topic when they taught you about pH? What did they usually teach? How did they teach that to you? You remember? Okay, well, that's all right. So pH is actually a way of measuring acidity or alkalinity. And a thing that measures 7 is actually considered to be a neutral thing. So water, in its natural state, is neutral. That's actually usually as the standard for being like pH neutral. Things that get more acidic would be things such as, you can see here, things like, milk is slightly acidic, 6.5. Egg yolks and coffee are between 5 and 6 there. Beer, 4.5. Orange juice, now it's getting more acidic, 3.5. 0 is actually like battery acid. We would never be drinking that, right? Nobody actually here goes out and gets a little sip from the, the Ever-Ready. That makes no sense, right? Then there's things that are alkaline. This is like the lye stuff. So baking soda is slightly basic. So what do people often say? Take this for an acidic stomach. What do? Baking soda, right? Helps neutralize the acid. That's what happens. The base and an acid together tend to neutralize each other. Ammonia, now you're getting to like 11.5. Household bleach, whoa, way up there, right? And then lye, that stuff will burn you if you're not careful. So our bodies are naturally around 7.3 as far as the alkalinity of them. They're slightly alkaline. There's only 2 places in your body that should ever really be acidic. One of them actually is your stomach, right? That's where you produce acid to break things down. I don't know what the average person's pH is in their stomach, but there it is. Hydrochloric acid is what your body makes to actually break things down before it moves on to the small intestine to be used more efficiently. And number two is when your bladder's filled with urine, it should be slightly acidic as well too. But the rest of your body should be alkaline. The problem is the guys that cancer and other diseases, they thrive in acidic environments. So if you actually have a person who's eating the standard American diet, lots of sodas with lots of sugar, okay, lots of highly processed foods, lots of snacky type foods, it pushes you in the direction of actually being acidic in your blood. And the problem is, like here, look at this, carbonated beverages, actually like 2.5, that's way up there. Those things make it easier for actually abnormal cells to actually thrive in those environments. So how in the world can we bring this down? Well, one way is usually simply just drink more water. Water's a great diluter, isn't it? So let's say if you even had a terrible diet, just drinking enough water per day, or actually maybe on the high end of that, would be very, very good. A good rule of thumb is take your body weight in pounds and divide by 2. If you're a sedentary individual, so let's just make this easy math. Let's say I weigh 200 pounds. Okay, how much should I drink in a given day if I divide by 2 in terms of ounces? 200 divided by 2 equals 100. So 100 ounces of water per day. Now, if I'm losing any amount of water excessively beyond that, how would that happen? Sweating, right? If I'm really active, right? People who exercise a lot, training like at a modest level or an Olympian. If I am a person who actually is in a hot environment, okay, it's like I guarantee you lose that. Have you also noticed that in the cold months you lose a lot too? Have you ever seen your breath, how all that vapor is going away? Your body has to rehydrate those tissues like your lungs and mucous membranes with mucus things. So that's one way we lose it in the winter months. But if you have any amount of things where if you're more active, another thing you can lose water from is actually what about things that you take that are diuretics? So you ever noticed that coffee is never consumed, it's merely rinsed for a while, and you have to give it back, right? So don't drink coffee before bed for lots of reasons, right? That's one of them. Well, you need to drink more water there too. So, and they just say drink less things that push water out, like coffee, soda, alcohol. These things, first of all, they give you the feeling of actually having your thirst quenched because they're wet, right? But they don't really satisfy. They actually don't do that. And number two is because of what we mentioned before, they actually are diuretics. They actually make you lose more things there too. So if you're on diuretics, you're taking medication for that, or if you actually are drinking these things, you need more. And these things on their own actually acidify your body as well. So try to make sure that you limit those things. Am I saying you can never have a glass of wine, never have coffee? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if you're going from 1 cup a day to 1 pot a day of coffee, that's a major change in how much actually acidity you're creating and also the amount of water you need to counterbalance that too. All right? How can I eat the alkalize? So if you ate 80% of your stuff was actually composed of like fresh produce, whether it be fruits or vegetables, if you look like this and took a fruits and vegetables supplement, that'd be a great thing. They actually help you normalize weight. People who actually consume the same amount of weight of food, but it's actually composed of those things, will lose weight automatically because they're so much less calorie dense. Like think about how much calories are in a candy bar versus eating several stalks of celery that has almost no calories to it. It's just amazing, right? Prevents diseases. And think of this like when you alkalize your body, Dr. Silverstein says, think of it like an alkaline battery. Like when you eat these foods, you become the Energizer Bunny. You can go and go and go. And your body doesn't have to counter all those acidities in your body. Then the remaining 20% can be derived from acidic foods like animal proteins, whether it be from meat, fish, whatever. Fats are largely acidic when they get used. They're called fatty acids. And then starches like sugar, grains, and sweets and so forth. But if you think about this, does that typify what I just showed you, 80% fruits and vegetables and then the rest being some type of lean meat? Is that what most Americans eat? How do most Americans go throughout the day? What's for breakfast? Donut. Pancakes, some type of sugary cereal.
Coffee with sugar.
There you go. Yeah, just a little jolt to get out the door, right? That's all I do. Then what happens for lunch, Mike? Where do they go either to sit down or drive through?
Oh, yeah.
Processed lunch, right? If I didn't bring my own. For dinner, what usually happens? Something maybe came out of a carton and got heated up in the microwave, right? Things like that too. So it's all processed. And then for snacks, the same thing too. So we're really acidifying our bodies every day, guys. And you're essentially creating a situation that you're going to be creating an uncomfortable state at least, and potentially disease-ridden in the worst case. So the last thing, guys, is if you can get through those 3 steps. If you have a food in front of you and you say, is this thing primitive? Yes, it is. Number 2, is it colorful? Yes, it is. Number 3, is it alkaline? Great, good. The last question you want to ask yourself is this organic? Now, I put this last, guys, because I think it's important, but I would still tell you that if you can make it only through the first 3, you're going to do better, which means if you're eating commercially raised fruits and vegetables, I'm still applauding you. That's great. But there's a reason to eat organic. The reason is this. The modern industrial agricultural system does put a lot of things in and around these vegetables and so forth. Synthetic fertilizers, antibiotics, pesticides, hormones, GMOs, and herbicides. And what happens is you consume food that looks really good. Like I'm always amazed at how symmetrical those tomatoes look in those racks there, but they're very much modified and they're very non-vitalistic, which means they don't contain a lot of great stuff, and they contain these products and the byproducts of that process. Organic foods, on the other hand, actually have no synthetic stuff in there. They usually do crop rotation, which means they give the chance for whatever corn or whatever soybeans or whatever wheat takes out of the soil and replace it with something that takes less of those things and replenishes what it took out. The minerals, sometimes they're going to put in things in the ground that not only does the plant need, but actually you actually need. Almost all modern agriculture is designed to whatever helps produce the biggest yield. The question is, what's the quality of the product of the thing for your body when it's done? That's almost a secondary consideration. But typically organic farmers will do that. They rotate crops and let the land rest. It's almost always higher in vitamins and minerals. It has way more phytonutrients and antioxidants. It has no artificial or harmful residue. And so that's why to get certified organic is actually pretty hard. When we talk about Juice Plus, guys, we're going to talk about the lengths they have gone to make sure that everything that goes into that does not contain those things in concentrated matter because you're concentrating whatever's in those plants. Now, here's what we typically hear. There's lots of yeah buts, okay? In 32 years of practice and in 23 years here in Lincoln, because we're going to celebrate our party tomorrow. For those of you who don't know, we actually have our Valentine's Day party on Wednesday. We'll be 23 years old as an office. We have a young adult now, which is kind of cool. I've heard a lot of excuses through the years, and here's the yeah buts people say. Number one is I can't afford to buy organic produce. Well, the first question I would ask you is this: can you afford to actually have cancer, autoimmune disorders, hormonal imbalances, or those things are not cheap to treat? Okay, you might say, "Well, I saved $1 at the store because I bought something that was not organic." What is the copay for chemotherapy? Hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? It's just amazing. Can you afford at least some organic foods? Like I would recommend buying the foods, at least the ones that you eat the whole thing, right? Grapes are something you eat the whole thing. So if grapes are sprayed, unless you're washing it really well, that stuff's on there and in there. Maybe you can take things like bananas and oranges and actually buy those as commercially raised because at least you get to take the peeling off, right? That's trapped a lot of the bad stuff in there for you. Okay? And then start with those foods where you consume the skin and then eventually graduate. So like grapes, apples, and cherries, buy those organic if you can. People sometimes say, I can't find organic produce where I shop. Sometimes in small town Nebraska, they don't have an organic section. Well, maybe you could grow your own. One of the things that we have here in the office, we actually just have it dismantled for cleaning right now, but is you could actually get a tower garden like this. You can find new places to shop. There's actually a place here in town, in this area, called the Nebraska Food Cooperative. You actually join this. It's a shared risk thing. You put some money into it, and these people actually raise things you would not maybe raise on your own, like beets, carrots, stuff like that. And they raise it in a very healthy way. And then you could actually grow your own garden outdoors. You know, back in the World War II era, I wasn't around then, but people tell me that was really cool because people had victory gardens. And what if we actually ever ran out of food? Well, if you learn anything about food supply and food and supply chain in the last 5 years, what happened? Things got pretty unpredictable, right? So a lot of people are actually raising their own food now, either indoors or outdoors, which is great. Number two, I don't like all that preparation and chewing. Okay? It seems like when I buy food, I like, candy bars that go right down. Man, I bite into an apple, I'm chewing forever. Well, that's part of the process. You're breaking down fiber. But here's the thing, you can always drink your produce, okay? There are some juicers, like the Juice Man, that actually take the pulp out. There are some, like the Vitamix, that actually leave it in. Both are acceptable. Almost every morning when I actually have a fruit smoothie, that's the one I choose, is the Vitamix. I put the fresh blueberries in or frozen ones in there, along with a protein powder like Juice Plus Complete, some ice cubes, some beets and so forth. And that whole thing goes down, guys. It's truly amazing, and it definitely promotes regularity and great stuff like that, too. The last one that some people say is, I don't like the taste of that. You had your taste buds conditioned at a very young age. If your mom and dad didn't make you finish your plate, who had to be part of the Clean Plate Club to leave the table? Or at least had to try everything? Did you ever hear up to that? That's good. Your parents raised you well, right? Some kids says, oh, Johnny, you don't like that. That's okay. You don't have to eat that. And guess what? Before he's refusing every vegetable. I'm often amazed at how many people tell me how their kids just don't eat stuff. I'm like, wow, I wasn't allowed to do that. But I, in the past, have carried things like this that were powders you mixed in, and guess what? People didn't like the taste of the real thing. Guess what they did to the powder, too? Didn't like it, right? So thankfully, we have Juice Plus, which is probably the best concentration I've ever come across of fruits and vegetables. It comes in a capsule form. It has no taste. Chew on the tongue, down twice a day, we're salt. It's easy to do. It's so easy to do, okay? This is the food pyramid, guys, or not the food pyramid, excuse me, it's the pyramid of health. This is where we get a chance to real quickly to talk about the essentials of health. Number one is, a vital need means your body has to have this to live. This is where this comes in the whole scheme of things. Number one is, what's one thing you have to live? We actually covered it tonight. What is it? You got to have food, don't you, right? How long can a person live without food?
Not very long.
What do you think, Mike? How long could you go? When a person goes on a complete fast, like to protest something?
Probably 3 weeks maybe.
Depends how much body fat you have. They say typically like 30 to 60 days is how long you go without food. You start to emaciate because your muscles start to shrink and all that stuff, right? Does the quality and quantity of what you eat make a difference here? Have I convinced you of that? Like if I said, Mike, you're going to eat donuts only for a week, and then Ryan, you're going to have some lean meats and some fruits and vegetables. In 30 days, could you tell the difference between these two individuals?
Absolutely.
You sure could. How they look, how they feel. You draw their blood. Okay? Lori, you're going to have as many donuts as you want to. All right? Just kidding. Along with that, you have to have water, don't you? Now, water is even more important. How long can you live without water? Yeah, depends where you're at. Sahara Desert, maybe shorter than that. Somewhere else we're not losing so much, maybe 3 to 7 days. But yeah, the quantity of water certainly matters here. Does the quantity matter? Let's say I said once again, okay, Ryan, you could have freshly filtered water. It's actually got all the minerals you need in this too. You can drink as much of the Pepsi you want, Mike.
Yeah.
So he's literally eating donuts and Pepsi for a whole month. Okay, it's wet, it's a liquid, but is it as good as water? Absolutely not, right? And you see it in Mike's health immediately, right? All his blood values would be off, things like that too. Even more important than those is oxygen, right? Do we have to breathe? Okay, how long can you live without oxygen? If I held your head underwater, how long can you go?
Not very long.
Yeah, 5, 6 minutes, maybe 7, right? That's about it. Every process in your body is driven by oxygen. Now, my question to you here, does the quantity of and the quality of oxygen you get here make a difference? If you have a really shallow posture where you're breathing very shallow, and you're living in an area like Los Angeles where you can see the air, okay, how's your oxygen content doing? Pretty bad, okay? On the other hand, sit up straight, okay? Live in an area that's relatively nice like Nebraska, relatively unpolluted and so forth. Are you getting more oxygen? Absolutely, right? What about when you exercise? You're forcing your body to take more oxygen. Do you guys know that your VO2 max, that how much oxygen you can process in a period of time for your cardiorespiratory system, is one of the biggest predictors of how long you're going to live. So I really want to encourage you guys to make sure you stay active. And the last one, guys, we often forget about is the nervous system. How long can you live without your brain turned on? Split second, you're gone, right? If your brain stops, you're gone. So do you see why in a chiropractic office we would say, let's make sure we take care of your subluxations first. And once that's going, start to address these things as well too. This is why I teach this stuff, guys, because I want you to have a full, well-rounded wellness plan, right? You cannot, how to say this, you can't eat yourself out of subluxations. If your spine's messed up, your nerves are stressed, no diet has been able to correct those things. In the same way, you cannot adjust yourself out of a diet that's composed of donuts and Pepsi, right? Does it make sense? You can't. So we want to make sure we address all these things. What's amazing about your body is it will do what it can with what you give it to be healthier, but you have to make sure you do the right things most of the time. You can have the occasional cheat day and cheat meal, that's fine. So we're going to make sure that this is where we do the quiz. Now, guys, we're going to make this easy for you, I hope, okay? If you guys don't pass this, I've done a bad job teaching. It's not on you, okay? So here we have this quiz here, okay? How will that teach you? Did you pay attention? Hopefully it doesn't look like this, how you see math word problems. If you have 4 pencils and I have 7 apples, how many pancakes will fit on the roof? Well, of course, purple, because aliens don't wear hats. Of course, right? That's simple problem. Here we go. That's right. So which meal is more primitive, A or B?
B.
Do you ever agree with Mike? Yes, I would agree too. This is a highly processed modern diet. This is a very primitive diet. Does everybody get that one there? So that's good. By the way, B is a good choice, Mike. Okay? Okay? Which is more colorful, A or B? Good choice. B is there too. B eating this diet, not this diet, right? White, if you go to the next wedding you go to, they serve white wedding cake, guys, enjoy it, have it. Don't eat 5 slices, but enjoy it. But when you go back home the next day, you'll be eating like this, okay? Number C, which is more alkaline, A or B?
Well, it's most alkaline food.
Right. I hope you can read the word alkaline there. Yeah, those foods will make you an energizer bunny. They're going to alkalize your body, the bloodstream especially, and there you go. This diet is highly acidic and will not do it. Typically, think about how you feel for eating that stuff. If you get the extra large value meal, how do you feel an hour later?
Oh, yeah.
Man, because that comes from lots of things. One is you've acidified your body, so you're going to start to feel inflamed. That inflammation makes your arteries start to shrink and raises your blood pressure. It also makes you sore in the joints because you're inflaming your body. All those seed oils that have been pumped into those buns and these burgers and the things too. So again, once in a while, it's okay, but man, not that way. And if you can find a healthier version of this that's been made a better way, more power to you. And lastly, which is organic? The one that says do not stay out of here, terrible, right? Yeah. Or the one that says organic. Okay, yeah. Hey, we have there it is. So look for those things, guys. Again, do you pay more for this? Right now we do. I think at some point though, Just like the government's policy was to create a thing where we had food for a long haul, like if we ever had the nuclear war, they focused their thing on supplying things for corn and stuff that would be long store foods. You will see someday in the future the government will say, you know what, we're seeing such a crisis of healthcare that we're going to start to supplement those foods that really do produce health, like broccoli and so forth too. If they just made that simple change, or even did half of it that way, you would see prices come down, and hopefully people who are saying I'm not eating that because it costs too much would actually start to make better choices too.
I like to say that organic food is becoming much more affordable.
It is.
And major grocery stores, Walmart has an organic section now, and
You better believe it.
And, all these stores have them now, so that can't be an excuse anymore.
I totally agree, Mike. When I knew we hit critical mass. They say for a culture to change how it does things, it has to hit about 25 to 50% mass. We're almost there with chiropractic now, which is very exciting to me too. But Walmart will sell anything for a buck. They're totally democracy. Whatever people want, they're going to provide for them, right? When I saw organic food showing up at Walmart, I said we've hit critical mass because now the masses can come there. In fact, if you notice that some of these the larger stores like Costco and stuff, you can buy large amounts of organic stuff.
Right.
If you do the math on it, it's going to be about the same as if you were buying a smaller amount commercially raised on an average serving size. Just make sure you buy it in bulk, which is great. So if all else fails, read the signs. Don't enter here. Don't enter here. There. Do not enter. If you follow those signs, you're going to be okay. All right? So, guys, this is not the end. It's the beginning. I'm going to do one last thing, and I'm going to have Lynn come up and share real quick. What I would say is you've been exposed to some pretty powerful principles here. You now have an intellectual, ethical, and moral obligation to do four things. One is research if what I've told you is true. I will show you places you can go and research this on your own, but I've saved you a lot of time by presenting to you and what I've been able to glean from it. Number two is this. Examine your life and say, am I happy with where I'm eating? If you're happy, guys, you know what? I'm not here to make a change in some ways. I hope some of the things have made you think and maybe be a little fidgety, like I think I want to live with that. But I think the last time you want to make a change for this, guys, is when you're forced into it because of a crisis, right? People will do lots of crazy things and major changes in their life when they are forced into a crisis because they now have a health crisis. Like the diagnosis comes, the biopsy comes and says, guess what? You have X syndrome or this disease. People will do all sorts of changes radically, but it's often not sustainable. Lastly, make changes for you first. Have you ever had the situation where somebody comes home and says, we're all going to eat this new way, guys? And everybody's like, yeah, right. Sure, Mom, whatever kind of thing. Well, make the changes for you first. Let your family see what's going on. And lastly, guys, when you see the benefits on your own and people start asking you, how'd you drop 20 pounds? How come you have all this energy at 10 o'clock when I'm actually fading at 6 o'clock? Well, you share them what happened to you. Okay? Share the success you've had by applying this model to yourself as you eat, and then we'll see what can happen. So hopefully, guys, you'll see our office as a trusted advisor. I've always thought that even if our office is a place where you're not coming for chiropractic care, if you're watching us online and you don't receive care here or chiropractic care at all, please come to us as a trusted resource to at least learn how to care for your body better in a certain way. Okay? So with that said, Lynn, I'm going to have you come up front and actually share what you can about concentrated fruits and vegetables, and then everybody's out of here. Okay? Come on up, Lynn. So I'm going to give these to you so you can be recorded nicely too. Once you turn around, just go to the top of yours just like this.
Well, I've never had such technology. Whoa.
This is a major mentor. I met Lynn Bartok over 10 years ago, and he's been a huge help in me actually eating better in a lot of my patients as well too. So thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Isn't Dr. Lynn excellent? The teaching he does every week. You know, I'm sitting there thinking on all this, and I was thinking about the donut and soda every day. You know, we've grown up with all this stuff. It tastes good. This stuff, processed foods, cheeseburgers, this stuff tastes good. Sodas taste good. Pizza tastes good. Lots of cheese on it. But I can't even imagine a donut and a soda a day for a month. I'm not sure you would be alive. I love Randy's Donuts from Lincoln. I hardly ever eat one. But I used to eat a few more. Every day when I would eat one of those, by noon I never did feel as good. And the days I didn't eat one, I always felt better at noon. But did that thing taste good? Yes. So we've got a real battle in our own minds and heads. This stuff tastes good, so why don't we just eat it all the time? Well, if we do, we are not going to live as long. We're going to get sick quicker with diseases. So what are we trading off? We're trying to acquire a healthy diet, and if we're on it long enough, it'll start tasting better, and the other things will not taste as well. But for that, we're going to get, we start here, we're born, I'll use these. We're born here and we die here. Everyone's going to die unless the world stops turning first. So the secret of all of this, the purpose of all of this, is to get us from here as close to here as we can, totally healthy before that day we die. No diabetes, cancers, heart diseases, all of these things. Then we have quality time to do what we love and to spend it with those we love and our families. That's what we're really talking about here. Creating a healthy lifestyle, and the benefit is a long life of quality and do what we love. Many people get about here, start having things develop, the different things, cancers, heart diseases, and then they can't do the things they love. They can't get off the tour bus. They can't go see their grandkids' activities. So, real quickly, Juice Plus came about in 1993. It is literally whole food. Nebraska doesn't tax food, so they don't tax Juice Plus because it's whole food. It carries a nutrition facts label, not a supplement facts label. That's very important because it is whole food. And if you look at the ingredients on each one of your bottles, the vegetables, the fruits, the berries on the back, what's some of the ingredients in that red one, that fruit?
Let's see, apple, cranberry, orange, beetroot, pineapple, some kind of cherry, mango, peach, date, prune, lemon peel.
Okay, read some of those.
Fruit and vegetable juice, carrot, pulp, grape, pomegranate, blueberry, green tea, cranberry, ginger, blackberry, raspberry, artichoke.
Okay, how about some vegetables?
Broccoli, garlic, cabbage, beets, lemon peel.
So, do you think the things you read are healthy? Do you think you've eaten all of those in your life? There might be one or two here or there, maybe you have never even eaten. But the powerful thing is the Heart, Cancer, and Diabetic Associations don't recommend supplements on their websites. They recommend 9 to 13 servings of fresh, whole fruits, vegetables, grains, that type of stuff. Whole food. That's what they recommend. It is hard to get that done. If you keep track of your eating every day, to eat 9 to 10 servings, it's hard. So to make it as easy as possible, this company said, let's contract with farmers all over America and abroad that can grow these crops healthy, no pesticides, herbicides, everything done correctly. Let's harvest them, and within 48 hours, we'll flash freeze them, we'll juice them, dry them to a powder, and we'll put them in a capsule. They take out most all the fiber, sugar, salt, everything. All that's left are the phytonutrients. But the reason they know they do good, and I got a couple of these out of the office, Dr. Lynn, you made several years ago. We got to upgrade this. If you'll read on there, says they've got, the company sends these samples to independent science university centers and have them test them. They do gold standard research on it, placebo controlled, double blind, all that. On there it says they've had 38 published studies. Guess what they're up to now? 48. They're up to 48 studies. If you actually got on your computer at home and Googled what is the most thoroughly researched whole food nutritional product in the world, this comes right to the top. It's this one. That's because of the company's commitment to research. I don't know how you can get it more simple than to put all of that different variety in the capsules, put them in your mouth, take a drink of water, 2 of each a day, 2 green, 2 red, 2 purple, swallow 6 capsules, and you've got all those different fruits, vegetables, and berries, phytonutrients from them in your body, and you have research to back that is doing things in your body that are good. They've never had a bad study. That's amazing. So that's what, we're all lazy. Americans are somewhat lazy on our diets. But this is as easy as it's going to get. We still should eat as many fruits and vegetables as we can up here. Here's where most of us are, somewhere down. We're not quite there, most of us. The purpose of this product isn't to replace a healthy diet. It's to bridge that gap and dump good quality nutrition into our bloodstream every day on a regular basis of a wide variety to boost that up. The one thing I never want to forget to mention, the company is so committed to children's health that if any adult orders Juice Plus, they can sponsor a child. That could be their child, a niece, a nephew, a grandchild, a neighbor's kid, doesn't even have to be related to them. But as long as that adult has their order active, that child will get the green and the red, the fruits and the vegetables free till they're 25 years old. They can start at age 4. There's gummies for little children at like 1, 2, 3. But I even have mothers that open up the capsules and dump the powders in their kids' baby food. So there's no limits. Pregnant mothers can eat Juice Plus, babies can eat Juice Plus. But have you ever heard of a company that'll give away, by the time they're 25, that's thousands of dollars worth of fruits, vegetables to kids, literally till they're 25 years old? It's unbelievable, but it's true. It's an amazing company. So that's it in a nutshell. Juice Plus is concentrated fruits and vegetables, easy to consume. Children get it free. It's backed by great research. From everything that's been said, do you have any questions?
So can you take these and then also obviously eat vegetables, fruits and vegetables as well? Even if you're getting up to that point, eating like 10
Right.
vegetables a day or something, you can still take this.
Right. It gets you much closer to where you should be as far as if they checked you, drew your blood and checked it and what's all in it, you'll be much better off. Unless you're the 3% of Americans who eat the 9 to 13 servings. The Center for Disease Control says there's a small percentage, 3 to 5. But that's
My wife does.
she might be one of those.
She juices, so she gets those servings through the juice.
Yep. Juicing's excellent. The guy that started this company, here's his story. Said, I bought a juicer. I was going to juice. And he said, I did it. I went and I drove to the grocery store, bought all the stuff, took it home, juiced it, nicked my finger, had to clean up afterwards. He said, I thought there's got to be an easier way. So when this guy come to him and said, I can figure out how to turn that juice into a powder and get rid of all that fiber and everything else and just leave the phytonutrients and just swallow the capsule. And he said, I'm in. It's so much easier. He just made it easier so it's most people don't have that willpower, but juicing is excellent way to go if you can do it.
It's also typically, not only less mess, but it's typically cheaper if you look at like what it would cost to juice a certain amount to get those things there too. Also, what's really cool is, like, I'll just say this real quickly, from the children's health perspective, when a child receives this, there's actually a survey form that comes with it, which makes them part of what's called a children's health study. Is what they're going to fill out and send it in. What they ask them is like, how many times in the last 4 months has your kid been to the doctor? How much water are they drinking? How much activity?
Mhm.
And what you'll see is when kids start getting whole food into their system, they start making better choices just because their bodies are working better. Like it just almost happens. You ever eaten a bag of Cheetos and actually feel like you're so hungry again? There's nothing there that means you just put in calories.
You can't stop. You know, it says you can't eat just one.
Yeah.
They're designed to make you keep going.
Yeah.
Many of those foods are made by the same people who make cigarettes. They know how to addict you so much. This stuff you get in your system, these kids do better. And then also, like, when they've done studies on these things to see what the effect is, they challenge the system to see what happens. One of my favorite studies is the one that Lyndon has mentioned in the past, where they have people go eat a fast food meal because they know that many times a heart attack event will happen after eating fast food. So it's so highly inflammatory. Those fatty acids that are found in like burgers and fries, you get a squeezing down and clamping down of your arteries. And if people already have a blockage there, it's not good. So they took healthy college students. They actually had them go eat a fast food meal, and they measured their blood pressure before and after. They saw, wow, look at this, like their blood was going up and so forth. So this group they gave them all capsules, half of them were placebos and half were Juice Plus. Some got only the reds and greens, some got the reds, greens, and purples. When they had to go back, they took the placebo with the thing for 30 days, go back and eat the exact same meal and see the effect. Those who got placebo, same reaction. Blood pressure goes up instantly. Those who had the reds and greens, it went up to what was like 10% of what it had been before, like this. And those who had the purples, greens, and reds, virtually none. So what it means is when you actually have whole food in your system, if you eat the occasional bad meal, the damage to your body is way less. Okay? So it has the same effect. Also, they've done ones where they take this and have people who were on a fast, had them take this product, and then they measure their bloods at 1 hour later, 5 hours later, 12 hours later, you see all the polyphenols and some of them showing up in their bloodstream. And someone that weren't even in the foods, but your body was able to take those building blocks and make new ones from them, just like if you're eating the whole food. So they actually know that it really does work. And the fact that they used to do this only for 3 years for kids, now they do it for what is that? That's 21 years, from age 4 to 25.
Yeah.
It cuts the price in half in a second. And that's a great deal.
That's a lot of free.
That's a lot of stuff.
It is. You know, I'll end with, when I walked into my first Juice Plus presentation, and we were on vacation, it was at a timeshare in California, and they just had a presentation. What do we do? 10 a.m., what do we do? Wellness present, we went to it. When I saw this, and they told me I could put all of that into my body simply by swallowing 6 capsules a day, I just signed up right there and ordered. I thought, that is so easy. But it's true. Yeah, I didn't want to buy the juicer. I'm too lazy. I'm too lazy to buy the juicer and go to the store and get the stuff. And this just makes it so much easier. But if you have any more questions, or if you consider placing an order at some point or time, Dr. Lynn and Brenda, we work together as a team with this nutrition product, so they can answer all those questions, how that looks. But any other questions? Dr. Lynn?
It's the one product we don't carry in our office, so if you'd like it, talk to Brenda. She's our office rep for that, and it comes directly to your house.